0150 in the morning. The Red Sea's 12 nautical miles off Hodeidah. The water is black and flat, and the air smells like salt and diesel exhaust. Aboard a lone Arleigh Burke class destroyer, the watch officer is staring at a radar picture that just changed. 8 contacts, low and slow, bearing 270. Closing. This is a hypothetical scenario built from real systems, real tactics, and real engagements documented in the Red Sea theater. Every weapon described here is real. Every number on your screen is sourced. The scenario is constructed for education, so that when you watch the news, you understand what you are actually watching. Here is what is about to happen. The Houthis are not trying to sink this ship with 8 drones. They are trying to bankrupt it. They are going to force the destroyer to spend $2 million missiles chasing $20,000 machines until the magazine runs dry, and then push 2 more drones through the gap in the air that is left behind. It nearly works. And the reason it does not work comes down to a 40-year-old gun bolted to the deck that does not care how expensive your missile is. Stay with me. By the end of this breakdown, you will understand the Phalanx CIWS better than most people who write about it. You will understand why a proximity fuse is one of the most elegant ideas in the history of naval warfare. And you will understand why the destroyer won this engagement, but the Houthis are still winning the cost war. All 3 of those things are true at the same time. And that tension is the whole story. Start with the weapon the Houthis are using, because understanding it is the entire first half of this lesson. The SAND-3 is a Yemeni-made one-way attack drone, what the military calls a loitering munition, or more accurately here, a kamikaze drone. It is not loitering, it is going somewhere, and it is not coming back. The airframe is roughly the size of a small motorcycle. Pusher propeller at the rear, warhead in the nose, satellite navigation system in the brain. It flies at roughly 150 to 180 kilometers per hour, slower than a light aircraft, faster than a speedboat, at altitudes low enough to hug the radar horizon. Here is the first mechanism to understand, and it matters for everything that follows. Radar works in straight lines. The Earth curves. A radar antenna mounted on a destroyer's mast can see farther the higher the target flies. A target flying at 50 meters above the water can sometimes close to within 15 or 20 kilometers before it climbs above the radar horizon, far enough to paint a clean return. The SAMAD-3 flies low on purpose, not because it is stealthy, it has a modest radar cross-section, but because it is buying time. Every kilometer it covers below the radar fence is a kilometer closer to the hull before the ship's crew can react. Think of it this way. A radar beam is like a flashlight pointed straight ahead. If you hold the flashlight at waist height and the target is crawling on the floor, you will not see it until it is very close. The SAMAD-3 is crawling on the floor. The destroyer's AN-SY-1D phased array radar picks up the contacts at roughly 18 kilometers. The tactical action officer has the picture. 8 tracks, subsonic, low altitude. Bearing from the Yemeni coast, no transponder codes. No flight plan. Classification takes 11 seconds. Hostile. Weapons free. The first SM-2 leaves the forward vertical launch system cell with a crack of igniting propellant and a column of white smoke that lights up the water for half a mile. Then a second. The SM-2, the Standard Missile-2, is a medium-range surface-to-air interceptor in the fleet since the 1970s, continuously upgraded, and it is extraordinarily good at its job against aircraft and anti-ship missiles flying at normal speeds and altitudes. Against a subsonic drone flying low and slow, it is also good, but it is expensive. Each SM-2 round costs somewhere north of $2 million. The first 2 intercepts are clean. 2 drones disappear from the radar screen in bursts of fire 7 kilometers out. The tactical action officer authorizes 2 more launches, then 2 more. The magazine is counting down. Here is the second mechanism, and this is the heart of the Houthi strategy. The part most news coverage completely misses. An Arleigh Burke destroyer carries 96 vertical launch system cells total. Those cells are shared across every mission. Tomahawk cruise missiles for strike, S-2 and SM-6 for air defense, VL Azraq for anti-submarine warfare. A typical wartime loadout might carry 30 to 40 SM-2 rounds. That sounds like a lot until you are burning them 2 at a time against a wave of 8 drones. And you know the force behind you has hundreds more drones, and the ocean has hundreds more knights. The Houthis understood this math before they launched. This is not a lucky strategy. It is deliberate magazine exhaustion, what analysts call a salvo competition, where the goal is not to win the first exchange, but to make the second exchange impossible. A swarm of 8 SAMAD-3 drones costs roughly 160, $0 total. The SM-2 rounds expended to stop them cost many times more. Run that exchange rate over weeks, over months, and the arithmetic bends hard against the defender. Going through the documented intercept data from the Red Sea theater, one pattern kept coming up. The Houthis were not sending their buzzsaws first. They were sending probing waves, 5, 6, 8 drones, calibrated to force missile expenditure without requiring a full magazine kill. The big wave comes later, when the math has already shifted. 4 of the 8 drones are down. The destroyer is now 40 seconds into the engagement. 4 more contacts still closing. 2 M2 launches, 1 intercept, clean, 1 miss. The drone jinx. Not a sophisticated electronic jinx, just the inherent difficulty of putting a multi-million-dollar interceptor onto a very small, very slow target that the missile's guidance system was originally optimized to chase at much higher closing speeds. The SM-2 was designed when the threat was a Soviet anti-ship missile doing Mach 2.5. A drone doing 160 km per hour is paradoxically harder to kill with the same weapon. The closing geometry is different. The radar return is smaller. The engagement window at the tail end of the missile's flight is tighter. That missed drone is now at 9 kilometers. Closing. 1 more SM-2. Intercept. 7 drones down, 1 still inbound, and a second contact that was masked in the electronic clutter of the first intercept just resolved. On the radar screen at 6 kilometers. There were never 8 drones. There were 9. The 9th flew in the radar shadow of the 8th. Here is the thing about this scenario that does not sit right, even on paper. The Houthis built in a deception that cost them nothing, just formation flying, that forced the tactical action officer to spend 1 additional M2, round chasing a ghost, and allowed a genuine leaker to close inside the safe engagement envelope for a big interceptor missile. 2 leakers, 6 kilometers out, closing at 160 kilometers per hour. Time to impact, roughly 2 minutes and 15 seconds. At this point, the SM-2 is no longer the right tool. This is the moment the engagement changes completely, and the reason it changes is a lesson that applies far beyond this single night in the Red Sea. The Phalanx CIWS, close-in weapon system, is a white dome mounted on a pedestal on the destroyer's deck, about the size and shape of R2-D2 if R2-D2 weighed 6,000 pounds and fired 4,500 rounds per minute. Inside the dome, a 20mm M61A1 Vulcan Gatling gun, a fire control radar, and a targeting computer. The entire system is autonomous. It detects, tracks, evaluates, and engages targets without requiring a human trigger pull. The operator's job is to turn it on and stay out of the way. Here is the third mechanism, and this is the elegant one. The SM-2 is a capable system for what it was designed to do. Reach out and intercept threats at distances of tens of kilometers, at speeds from subsonic to supersonic, in all weather. But every missile system has a dead zone, a minimum engagement range inside which the missile cannot safely arm, guide, and intercept. For a large interceptor like the SM-2, that inner boundary is typically several kilometers. Inside that distance, the missile is flying too fast. Its guidance fins cannot generate enough deflection to chase a slow target, and the warhead may not have time to arm before it passes the threat. You are holding a sledgehammer and trying to swat a fly that has already landed on your sleeve. The Phalanx does not have that problem, because range in that sense does not factor in. Its effective engagement envelope starts at roughly 1,500 meters and extends out to perhaps 3,500 meters depending on target size and aspect. It exists specifically to handle the threats that slip past the long-range layer, the leakers. The gun spins up. The barrel cluster reaches operating speed in about 1 second. The fire control radar, a dedicated Ka-band system inside the dome, completely independent of the ship's main AN-SY-1D, locks both inbound contacts simultaneously. The computer calculates intercept geometry. The gun fires. 4,500 rounds per minute is 75 rounds per second. A standard burst lasts approximately 1 second, meaning roughly 75 tungsten penetrator rounds fill a cone of airspace roughly 10 meters wide at the target's range. Now here is the fourth mechanism, and it is the one most people do not know about modern Phalanx ammunition. The round does not have to hit. It only has to get close. The Block 1B Phalanx uses a proximity-fused round, a round that contains a small radio transmitter continuously measuring the distance to the nearest object. When that distance drops below a programmed threshold, the fuse fires. The round shatters into a spray of tungsten fragments, and those fragments spread outward in a cone pattern roughly comparable to a shotgun blast at close range. Against a drone with a thin aluminum skin, a gasoline or explosive payload, and delicate navigation electronics. Even a near miss at 5 or 10 meters is lethal. The drone does not need to absorb a direct impact. It needs to absorb the fragment cloud. Think of it this way. A direct impact round is a pointed finger. A proximity fuse burst is an open hand. Against a small, fast-moving target, an open hand covers far more sky. The first leaker detonates in a fireball at 1,800 meters. The second detonates 4 seconds later at 2,100 meters. Both bursts are visible from the bridge. Bright orange flashes low over the water, trailing smoke and burning fragments that hiss into the sea. The engagement from first SM-2 launch to final Phalanx burst. 4 minutes, 11 seconds. Hull damage, 0 gone. Both of them. In 4 seconds of gun time. What is most surprising about this engagement is not that the Phalanx worked. It was designed for exactly this. What is surprising is the margin. 2 leakers reached the inner gun engagement zone, which means the entire outer defense layer, all those expensive missiles, was nearly not enough. The Phalanx was not a backup. In those final seconds, it was the only thing standing between an intact hull and a drone warhead detonating on the waterline. Here is what this tells us about the current state of naval air defense in the Red Sea theater. The layered defense concept, long-range missiles thin the wave, medium-range missiles finish the survivors, close-in guns catch the leakers, is working. But it is working on thin margins, and the cost asymmetry creates a structural problem that no amount of tactical excellence resolves. Most people assume the side with the more sophisticated technology wins these exchanges. The evidence from the Red Sea tells a different story. The Houthi strategy does not require them to sink a destroyer. It requires them to make operating a destroyer in the Red Sea expensive enough and politically complicated enough that the risk calculation changes. 12 months of documented intercepts in the theater suggest they are making progress on that math even as they lose every individual engagement. Here is the unpopular read. The real Houthi victory in the Red Sea is not measured in ships hit. It is measured in SM-2 rounds expended, in sortie rates diverted, in commercial shipping rerouting around the Cape of Good Hope rather than through the Suez Canal. The gun wins every gunfight. The cost curve is losing the war of attrition. Both of those things are true at the same time. Put yourself in the tactical action officer's position for a moment. You have a picture with 8 contacts closing. You have 30-some SM-2 rounds in the magazine. You do not know if this is the whole wave or the leading edge of something larger. Every round you fire now is a round you do not have tomorrow night or the night after. Do you shoot early and thin the wave aggressively, accepting higher missile expenditure to minimize leakers? Or do you conserve, accept that some drones will reach the inner envelope, and trust the Phalanx to handle them? This is not a rhetorical question. Destroyer commanders in the Red Sea have been making exactly this calculation in real time, under real pressure, with real consequences. The doctrine answer is, engage early, accept the cost, protect the hull. The strategic answer is more complicated, because the magazine you empty tonight may be the magazine you need in a different contingency, a higher-end threat, a different theater, a crisis that escalates faster than the supply chain can respond. We cut a deeper analysis of the VLS reload problem from this breakdown. Drop a comment if you want that as a standalone episode, because the logistics picture is genuinely alarming. The swarm is gone. 8 drones launched, 8 drones destroyed, 6 by SM-2, 2 by Phalanx. The destroyer is undamaged. By any tactical definition, this is a complete American victory. The ship continues its patrol. The Houthis will know their attack failed within minutes, from observers ashore with binoculars and a clear line of sight to the engagement. They will also know exactly how many SM-2 rounds were expended. They do not need spies for that. The number of launches is visible as a light and sound signature from the coast. They are keeping a tally. One detail that stuck with me going through the open-source analysis of the Red Sea campaign: the Houthis have shown a pattern of deliberately varying the size and timing of their salvos in a way that strongly suggests they are running operational experiments, testing which salvo sizes force which response rates, mapping the defender's engagement doctrine from the outside. They are not just launching drones, they are collecting data. Here is the final lesson, the one that reframes everything you just watched. Before this campaign, conventional naval doctrine treated the missile as the primary air defense tool and the close-in gun as last resort. Phalanx was designed in the 1970s as a safety net, the thing you hope you never need. In the current Red Sea environment, against a saturating swarm of cheap one-way attack drones, That hierarchy has quietly inverted. The gun is not the backup. Against slow terminal leakers inside the missile's minimum engagement range, the gun is the primary solution. And the missiles exist, in part, to make sure the gun only has to deal with 2 or 3 threats at a time rather than 8. Depth of defense beats reach. The last gun matters more than the first missile. The SM-2 is a capable weapon. It reaches out and eliminates threats at distances that give the crew time to breathe, time to reassess, time to deal with the next wave. But in a magazine exhaustion scenario, exactly the scenario the Houthis are deliberately engineering, the SM-2's cost per kill is the strategic vulnerability. The Phalanx, firing $20 rounds at a $20,000 drone, produces the most cost-favorable exchange in the entire engagement. It is also the most dangerous moment because by the time the Phalanx fires, the ship has already accepted that something got through. The open question this engagement leaves is one the US Navy is actively working through. Right now, how do you break the magazine exhaustion math? Directed energy, laser systems that cost $1 per shot is the theoretical answer. The Navy's AN/SC-3 laser weapon system and the more advanced systems in development are aimed directly at this problem. But they are range-limited and weather-degraded, and fleet-wide deployment is not happening tomorrow night. Until then, the destroyer in the Red Sea is doing exactly what it was designed to do, and hoping the design assumptions hold. Comment yes if you think directed energy breaks this cost curve within 5 years. Comment no if you think the drone swarm will always find a way to adapt. We read every comment, and that debate is one of the most consequential questions in naval warfare right now. The destroyer makes its next waypoint. The watch officer logs the engagement. 8 for 8. Hull integrity nominal. Magazine status reduced. Somewhere on the Yemeni coast, a team with a laptop is already reviewing the launch data and planning the next wave. If you want to understand the other side of this cost equation, how the US Navy is thinking about directed energy, magazine depth, and what the next generation of naval air defense actually looks like, that breakdown is already in production. Hit subscribe so you do not miss it when it posts. And if this breakdown gave you something you did not know before, share it. That is what this channel is for.